While it's all well and good to focus on growing our gym and focusing on our marketing so we get more leads and ultimately more members, of course, on the back end, we're always constrained by retention because we can get all the members in the world, but if no one is sticking around, that's a problem. So what does good look like? Well, lucky for you, today we're gonna take a look at this and understand what good and bad retention looks like based on the model that you run. My name is Mark Fisher from Business for Unicorns. And if you're looking for more help understanding how to assess what's actually going on with your gym and where you should be focusing your attention, well, you're gonna wanna check out the Gym Owner Report Card. You can either click the link below in the description box or go to gymownerreportcard.com. Now, as a gym owner, it is very important for us to understand how we are doing relative to some commonly accepted benchmarks for the various metrics you might be tracking in your business. So let's discuss the numbers I look at when we're talking about retention. Now, we're talking about retention. We will not often actually use retention per se, but in fact, its opposite metric, which is attrition, or sometimes called churn. Attrition, or churn, simply calculates the percentage of active members in a given month that decide they are going to terminate their membership and they're no longer working with you. So for example, if you have 100 members at the start of the month and then you have 5 members decide they're going to terminate, that gives you 5% churn. Now, as I mentioned, the benchmarks are going to be impacted based on the model you run. So for example, it is commonly held to be true, and in practice this is the case, that if you run something like small group personal training, you're going to have lower overall attrition, and classes are going to be more of a volume play. You're going to have higher attrition and lower retention. So for example, if you're doing small group personal training, the gold standard here we want to see, if you're really hitting it out of the park, is 3%. Now, 3% is pretty damn amazing because as another offering for how you think about this, you gotta understand you're gonna have a base of around 1% per month that is totally out of your hands. Right, because in any given month, some percentage of your members are gonna either move away or for things that truly, there's nothing you can do about. You can't stop a member from getting a job in a different state. So you're always gonna have attrition. There's nothing you can do to prevent people from leaving. So in practice, when we say 3% as the gold standard, that actually means you're looking at 2%, which means on balance, you really are doing a great job of convincing people that what you offer is relevant, they're getting value out of it, and frankly, you should be celebrated. You're doing a great job. Now, if you're running small group personal training and doing 4%, also good. 5% is okay. And I would say that for small group personal training, once you're up to 6 to 7% attrition, I think while it's not the end of the world and I would never encourage you to panic, it does suggest that there's something not sticky about your programming. And if I can offer one other consideration here that I do think plays into this is if you have cancel at any time membership, I think that's also going to generally impact these numbers up by about 1%. Now, there's very good reasons to only offer cancel at any time in practice because that's the way most of us engage with any service that has a subscription in today's day and age. Think about Netflix, think about Amazon. Most of us are used to being able to unsubscribe with a click. And furthermore, I actually think it makes your marketing sales a little bit easier because you're never really making a big ask that anyone's locked into. So I think that can be a pretty client-friendly offering, and I would expect that's gonna bump all these numbers up by about 1%. So if you only offer cancel any time, if you can do 3% there, I am high-fiving the hell out of you. Even with cancel any time, once you're up to certainly 7% or more, and maybe even 6%, I think that gets kind of borderline. I'm gonna suggest, don't freak out, but there are some things we need to do to improve our retention. And if you need help here, well, conveniently, I've of course made a video. Check out my video in the description box below on 3 tips to make your clients stay longer. Now, as I mentioned, if you're doing classes, you're gonna likely see bigger churn, and that's for a number of reasons. Conventional wisdom is that number one, there's just more humans, there's more bodies in the room, so they're gonna get less individualized coaching in the actual session. And perversely, part of the argument for why churn tends to be higher for classes is that people are spending less money. And I just want to speak on this for a minute because that might be confusing to you because you might think, well, if they're spending less money, wouldn't they be staying there longer? And in practice, what seems to happen is people are spending less money on a class-based concept tend to, as a rule, tend to be a little bit younger, tend to have a little bit less discretionary income. While you certainly can have young individuals take small group personal training and you can have older individuals take classes, in practice, even as a fitness model, classes are just generally gonna be better fit for younger people. Even the actual experience, I think, as you know, classes are a little bit more of a party, which might lend itself to people that are younger, they're looking more social. Now, overall, you can have an amazing class-based facility and do great. It's no secret that most of the most successful fitness franchises are class-based models, so you can do fantastically well here. It's just a different game. It's a volume game, so you have to spend a lot more time, energy, money, and capacity on marketing and sales and getting people in, because let's think about it this way. Even if you have comparable attrition, okay? Let's say you're doing 5% with small group with 100 members. Well, that means you need 5 members to replace the 5 members you lost. If you're doing 5% attrition in a class-based model and you've got, let's call it 300 members, well, holy cow, now you need 15 people per month just to prevent yourself from backsliding. So again, it's not wrong, but I think that's a thing to consider as far as which model is going to make most sense for your personal preferences as a fitness professional and as a gym owner. So what is a good class churn? Well, I think the simplest way to think about this is, as a rule, it's going to be about 1 to 2% higher than small group personal training. So if you're running classes and you're at 4% with a class-based model, that is awesome. If you're at 5%, I think it's pretty darn good. 6 to 7% is solid, okay? 8%, 9% now we're starting to not be so great here, right? Once again, you can discount for counts at any time. If you're doing counts at any time, I'd expect these numbers to be about 1% higher. I'll tell you that the average attrition for class-based concepts without contracts is about 10%. And again, I realize while that's average, I don't think that's good, right? So I do want to challenge, I think we can do better than that, because in practice, listen, we're all gonna have to spend some of our time doing marketing and sales activity, but generally speaking, more profitable gyms, unless you've achieved really massive scale, right? And again, you think about some of those franchises. Okay, if you're doing 1.5 million, you can do 30% EBITDA, 40% EBITDA on 1.5 million. It's not a bad business, but it's gonna be very different than a more modest, let's say, the archetypal small group facility that has maybe 6 people a time that's looking for anywhere from 100 to maybe 150 people for the facility. Then before you might want to consider opening up other ones if you do want scale, because of course that model is going to be a little bit capped for the revenue, but you'll have better retention. So many things to consider. All right, friends, I hope that clears things up a little bit. I know part of the benefit of working with a coach or talking to someone like myself that thinks about this stuff all day long is I do think I've got a pretty broad swath of the industry, so I can sort of quickly speak to a lot of what these numbers are in different models. And of course, if you're interested in finding out more about what we do, as always, there's no pressure, but you can click the link below to find out more about our coaching group, Unicorn Society. And in the meantime, I hope to see you soon for another video where I will share more actionable tips, psychological frameworks, and philosophy.